movies have been around for a considerable amount of time, and the techniques these movies use to scare the viewer have changed quite a bit. This documentary was made in order to show these changes and differences. What is perhaps the first horror film was created by French director Georges Méliès. The film was entitled Le Manoir du Diable, and was made in 1896. In 1922, Nosferatu, the first horror movie to use vampires, was made. It was essentially an unauthorized adaptation of Dracula. In the 1930s and 1940s, many film adaptations of horror stories began to be made, such as Dracula and Frankenstein. In the 1950s, horror movies began to change. End-of-the-world scenarios and demons began to become more popular in the genre. Alfred Hitchcock's film Psycho sparked the slasher movie. Hitchcock continued to contribute to the genre after this as well. In 1968, George A. Romero released Night of the Living Dead, a very influential movie. In the 1970s and 1980s, films with stories relating to cults and religion became more prevalent, The Exorcist being a good example. Later, slasher movies such as Halloween, Friday the 13th, and A Nightmare on Elm Street grew in popularity. In the 2000s, foreign horror films began to grow in popularity in North America, starting with the movie Brotherhood of the Wolf. Other foreign horror films also rose in popularity here, often being remade. Horror movies often make quite a profit, without having that high of a budget. The Evil Dead, filmed on a budget of $375,000, managed to make $29 million. Saw, made on a budget of $1 million, made $10 million. Friday the 13th, made for $500,000, made $60 million. Halloween, made for $325,000, made $70 million. Night of the Living Dead, made for $114,000, made $110 million. The Blair Witch, made for $600,000, made $250 million. Paranormal Activity, made for $15,000, made $195 million.
The whole if it's a series, it's the Halloween series. If it's a single movie, it'd probably be comedy slash kind of a horror. It's Zombieland.
I actually don't really like horror movies. Because people get too bored with what's going on in their current life, so they need something like that. That's also sort of the appeal of video games and other kinds of movies. I think it's because, actually, I heard this theory explained to me. People watch a violent movie or something and need more violence in the next one, or else they're not going to be satisfied. So they do that, so they keep watching scarier and scarier movies, and that helps it be successful.
There are quite a few genres of horror. Action horror aims to entertain more than it does to scare, obviously being more focused on action scenes than frightening scenes. Then there's comedy horror, a blend of comedy and varying levels of horror. Psychological horror is about character development and said character's fears and psychological stability. There is also sci-fi horror, usually using aliens, and slasher movies, using a human antagonist. Then finally, zombie movies. Whatever the reason horror movies continue to be so successful, it doesn't look like they're going to stop being produced anytime soon, which in my opinion is a good thing.